Well, it's great to be back with you today, and as everybody shared, we had an amazing trip in Israel, and still trying to recover and get back on Eastern Standard Time. So there's good and there's bad. You wake up at 3:30 in the morning and get a lot done. There's not people calling, and there's nobody around. It's been raining and ugly, but I'm ready to get back to normal time, because by 2 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be like this. Right? As everyone shared, we had the privilege of going to Tiberias, all throughout the area of Galilee, going on the Sea of Galilee. And before we went on the trip, I kind of gathered everybody together. I said, listen guys, don't worry about trying to feel something. Just go, just be there. Don't worry about, as Brother Steve Bonner, he's in the other worship area, but he said, well, I feel like if I'm there, well, God's with me when I'm here, and God's with me then I'm there. I wouldn't feel any different. I said, sure, yeah, that's fine. And I told everybody God is everywhere. I said, just go and be there. But it didn't take long, as the Baird shared about, as we're singing on the Sea of Galilee, where we're all just, trying to control your emotions, and you just couldn't. And then as Jody shared, went to this place called Eremos. It's a grotto. I did a lot of research. They said 99% of pilgrims don't go to this area when they go to Israel. I'm like, we're going to go there. The word Eremos means lonely. And the scriptures Jody read are about going to lonely places. Jesus went to lonely places and prayed, and they believe that this place Christians have visited over the centuries. So it's a pretty authentic site. I'm like, let's find it. But we were driving this way, that way. I don't know where it is. We'll keep going. And we spotted someone. I said, that might be it right there. Let's stop. So we turned, did a U-turn. Just craziness. Got on the side of the road, which had a big ledge. And we just squeezed into a little parking area, got out, and went up this unmarked area. We wouldn't know it was there. And we sat in this grotto, an open cave, and looked out over the Sea of Galilee. And one by one we prayed. And without every single person shed tears there. And you'd start praying, dear God, and it's just that kind of place. I don't know why. Other than Jesus walked there, we believe Jesus prayed there at that spot. And the whole time was like that. And I wish we could share, and we'll share more next week, but I wish we could just convey the sense of the spirit there that we had. I'm going to find the correct lesson that I'm going to teach you. This was some of the leaders, and look at it, that doesn't seem right. I want to talk tonight about courage. Today. Yes. Good job. I want to talk about courage, because going there, it drove home to me the idea that it takes courage to be a Christian. It takes tremendous courage to live the Christian life. You cannot be a coward and live the Christian life. That's right. It takes strength. It takes guts. Acts 4:13 says, when they saw the courage of Peter and John, who realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished, and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. Wow. When they saw these guys and realized that they have confidence, they have courage, they associated that, they spent time with Jesus. Jesus was known for his courage. As you walk throughout these streets, especially as we visited Jerusalem, I'll talk a little bit more about that, you realize Jesus had tremendous courage. It took guts to do what he did. Let's open our Bibles to Matthew 16. I want to share about a place that, I know she didn't mean it, it's just, we're all getting a little older. It's Caesarea Philippi that Terry shared about. She was thinking of Capernaum. Anyways, Caesarea Philippi. Peter actually didn't live there, but I overflooded them with information as we were going. But we're going to talk a little bit about this place and this very crucial passage in the book of Matthew. In Matthew chapter 16, let's start reading together in verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. What about you, he asked. Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loose in heaven. Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Going on. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. It takes courage to be a Christian. This is a crucial passage in the book of Matthew and in Jesus' ministry. From this point on, he leaves the ministry of Galilee and he's heading towards Jerusalem. And he's there several times, he leaves, but he goes back, and he's heading towards what he knows is his final days. He's heading towards the cross. And everything changes. This is kind of like a graduation type passage. This is the only time in the Bible where he takes the disciples to northern Galilee. This is the foot of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the largest mountain in all of that area. Today, you've got Israel, you've got Lebanon, you've got Syria, all claim part of Mount Hermon. And the foot of Mount Hermon is the headwaters to the Jordan River. And we went up there, and there was this large city back in Jesus' day called Caesarea, which was named after Caesar Augustus. And Philippi, Caesarea Philippi. Philip was one of Herod's sons, one of his wicked, evil sons. He named it after Caesar, and he named it after himself. Well, what was this city like, and why did Jesus go there? We're going to talk about that for a little bit. I think I even have a couple of little pictures of what it's like today. This is the foot of Mount Hermon. You see the waters there. You don't see a lot of water in Israel, period. It's extremely important. These are springs. You can see how clear it is that gush out of the ground and begin to form these different tributaries in different areas that come together to form the Jordan River, of course, flow into the Sea of Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, where they die. They evaporate. But it's a pretty amazing area. And what was it like? Well, it was a very populated city in Jesus' day. It was a pagan city, a Gentile city, a Greco-Roman, very heavy Greek influence, as well as a Roman influence in this city. And the Jews never went there. So it was very unusual for Jesus to take his disciples north. It took us an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, I think, from Tiberias to drive up there. So Jesus, they walked, if you don't know, they actually walked it. I don't know how long it takes Jesus to drive. They walked it, so it took a long time to walk up there. And he purposely took his disciples up there to this place where Jews would not go. They would not be found dead there. And he took them there to this place. And at this time, and he said, "Who do people say I am? Who do people say the Son of Man is?" What was there? Not this guy. This is the god Pan, the Greco-Roman god Pan. There was actually a temple to Pan there. And during Jesus' day, a massive temple. And Pan basically was the god of the underworld, he was a god of fertility. And don't look it up online, it's wicked stuff. Even the statues and things, he was a god of fertility. And it was in this place where this temple was, there was all kinds of gods that were placed up in the rock. I've got a spot here, I went too fast. I'm sorry, this was the cave of Pan. And from this cave, during Jesus' day, it comes down a little lower now, the water's moved, but springs of water would just gush out of this cave. And what they believed was, what the pagan gods, what they believed was that the gods would go during winter and they would go into this cave, through the water, into the underworld. What we would call, what the Greeks call Hades. They would go into the underworld, all the gods would stay there. Then in the spring, when the water would gush forth, these gods of fertility would come out from this gate, and they'd come out there, and they'd build a temple there. And they would worship these gods in horrible, despicable things that I wouldn't even want to share about. this wasn't, it was ritual prostitution and all kinds of deviant sexual practices and cutting and horrible, horrible things. That's how they worship this God of fertility. Hear us and bring the water out. And they would worship and they'd worship and all sit there and they'd praise this God, the God of Pan and the other gods. And what they would do is they would set these idols up in these notches that are there to this day. We went out there and we sat in these places. These were even pre-Jesus days, but when Jesus was there, they would put these little gods up there. And they would set them there, right by the cave. Right by that cave, if you were to move just to the right where people are standing, there's these massive places. They would set the gods in there. You can see they're carved out. They must have been very ornate. Some of them have like carvings in the back of them. See if I can keep that going. I want to go back. That's not a god, by the way. I'm pagan god. Well, I might take a picture of me. I used to be a pagan, but I'm a pagan god. That's what it looked like. You see the big cave in the back. That's from all the archaeological digs, what they believe it was like. Jesus came to this place, right? And as he came there, he brought the disciples, and there's this pagan place. Going, what are we doing here? Jesus said, who do people say I am? Who do people say the Son of Man is? And in other words, look at all these other gods. What do they say about me? Some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, Jeremiah, fiery prophets. And he goes, what about you guys? This is it, man. Do you get it? Peter, who always lacks words and doesn't like to speak up, stepped out here. Read the Bible, he couldn't shut up. But Peter got it right this time. He's like, you are the Messiah. You're the one we've been waiting for. You are the Son of the living God. Not one of these gods, right? Not one of those gods right there. Jesus brought him to this place and he declared it right there. He's like, Peter, this wasn't even revealed to you by man. You didn't just get it. My Father revealed this to you. This is exciting. This is amazing. He allowed you to understand who I am. And then as he points and he says, and on this rock, this is what many believe. And I tell you, you're Peter, and on this rock, I'm going to build my church. You understand that maybe it was a little different. Some people think that, some people go, well, it was built on Peter, the first pope. That's not true. It's not true biblically. It's not true ancestrally. Maybe it was on this rock that Jesus said, the declaration that Peter said, I'm the Son of the living God. Many believe that he pointed to these rocks and said, and on this rock, in this place, in the most despicable place known to man. So he's got the disciples there. In this spot, I will build my church. You with me? And the guys go, what? In the darkest places on earth. And he says, not only that cave, I might even have another picture of that. Oops, I went too far. I don't think I do have a picture of the cave, no. But he says, and the gates of Hades, that was considered the gate of Hades. That's where they went to the underworld. And he says, and the gates of Hades will not prevail. What was the idea? Jesus was saying, listen, guys, you're from this podunk little towns that even today as we went there, there's nothing there. You know, Tiberias was a big city in that day. It's a big city today. That's where we stayed. You drive up to Capernaum, it's an archaeological site. It's the old synagogue. They found ruins of that. You go to Bethesda, Bethsaida, we didn't get to go there. There's nothing there. It says this is the former site of Bethsaida. There's some rocks that they dug up. And there's nothing there. He said, you're from Nowheresville, Galilee. You're from, Ladson, South Carolina. You're from Moncks Corner. You're from, Somerville. God forbid you're from Ridgeville. If you go further out, 26, anyway, all right, where's that? You're from nowhere. What is this in the sight of the entire world? Jesus said, no, in this place, in the most despicable place. Get ready, guys. This is where I'll build my church. And the gates of Hades will not overcome it. He was inspiring them. And then what happens is, it says from that time on, that was it. Jesus like, all right, let's go. You're ready. This is where it's going to happen. He goes, from that time on, Jesus began to tell them, I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be, I will suffer, I'll be tortured, I'll be betrayed by these the chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees. I'll be put to death and I'll be raised from the dead. He tells them 4 times from here on out in Matthew. Here, chapter 17, chapter 20, and chapter 26. He's telling them over and over again, let's go, I'm heading to Jerusalem. So he tells them, you need to have courage. We're going to do the impossible. I'm going to build my church in these places, in the darkest of places. In Las Vegas, New York City. What do you think is a dark place? New Orleans. Columbia. Yes. They are these places. He said Clemson. These places I will build my church. And then what happened was Jesus went on to show them and set an example and live out the kind of courage it's going to take. Guys, for us, if we want to live the life of a disciple, if we truly say, I want to follow Jesus, I'm a follower of Him, it takes courage. It takes guts, especially in this day and age, at this time, at this hour, in our country, anywhere. But right now, it takes incredible guts to stand up and follow Christ. Number 1, it takes courage to face your foes. Look down at verse 21. It says, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to the disciples that He must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of who? The elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. And that He must be killed and raised on the 3rd day. It takes courage to face your foes. Jerusalem in many ways, was not a friendly place. It was not a friendly place. Jesus went there. There were groups of people. There were the leaders of the people, the elders, the scribes, the teachers of law. These were all, they led the entire country. They led Jerusalem. They were the ones who made all the decisions. They were vehemently opposed to Jesus. They couldn't wait for Him to come. They were against Him. You know, it was interesting. As we left Galilee, which was nice, more countryside, was beautiful, and we entered Jerusalem. You know, it's just a complete contrast, totally different. Prepare everybody, listen, it's not going to be as quiet and relaxing as Galilee. Get ready. You're in a big city. You walk into the old city of Jerusalem, and it's crammed with people. I don't know. I was crazy with all the tourists that were there. I'm like, what are y'all doing here? You know? Let us be here. And it's funny, we actually ran into people we knew all over. It was unbelievable. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? But there were places, I got to be honest, and my wife knows, she's not here. She took off. She didn't want to back me up. But there were places like, it's okay, it's okay. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, you're like this, and people are elbowing you in the name of Jesus, or whatever. I don't know what they're doing, but, you know, I've got to get to this holy site. Get out of my way. I'm going to knock you over. It was challenging. And it's a very, very intimidating place. You go to the Wailing Wall, and there were 3 sects, main sects of religious sects of the Jews in Jesus' day. There was the Essenes, there was the Sadducees, there were the Pharisees. The only one that remains is the Pharisees. Wow. To this day, they remain. Wow. You can ask those who went, even on the plane, as we're landing in Israel, they take off their jackets, they put on their ceremonial hats, they let their long curls down, they took out their phylacteries, they wrapped them around their arms, down to their hands, they put on their long prayer shawls, phylacteries, they put them on their foreheads, where they put scriptures. Jesus said in Deuteronomy 8 about binding them in your forehead, and they took it literally, and you know, if you go read Matthew 23, you'll see all the things that Jesus said against this. It's all outward. It's all this outward display of piety, of religion, and even the Christian people, they wear long robes and different types of hats and massive crosses, and it's all in competition to who's the most pious, who looks the most somber, who prays the hardest, who can shed the most tears at the Wailing Wall. And you think back, that's what it was like in Jesus' day. Yeah, right. Those religious leaders were there, and it's an intimidating place to this day. And it was in that day. give you an idea of even being there. This is the Wailing Wall. It's the Dome of the Rock. If you don't know, the Dome of the Rock sits right where the temple used to be, on the Temple Mount. Israel, it's all Israel controlled, but the Temple Mount, they allow the Muslims to control that. Go a little wide. Because of that golden dome right there, which is actually gold. It's copper with gold plating over it. I know because I went up with a chisel and a hammer. Took it down. But that's, inside of there is literally a massive rock. And that rock, Jews believe that's where Abraham went, and we believe that's where Abraham went and was about to sacrifice Isaac. We know that that is where the Jebusites lived, and David went and bought the threshing floor, the threshing floor of Araunah. It was Jebusite right there. And that's where David decided to build the temple. They believe that when Muhammad died in early 600s, early 7th century, that he died in Mecca. He rode his horse by night to Jerusalem. He tied his horse up at the southern steps down there. He went up there to the Dome of the Rock and he ascended to heaven. And in 697, they built their first little shrine there. The Muslims controlled that area. Of course, the Crusaders came and wiped it out. They rebuilt, and now it's the Dome of the Rock. And the Jews are at the Wailing Wall. There's no part of the original of Herod's temple is left. But the Wailing Wall, you see these rocks that were Herod put in place. It's actually the supporting wall that supports the massive Temple Mount. It's a retaining wall. And some of these stones, we did this kind of behind-the-scenes tunnel where they tunnel into the wall. And some of the stones are 42 feet long. You can imagine 42 feet long. They're 13 feet thick and 9 feet high. And that's what I said. You walk over to it, you can see where it was beveled, and Herod put these there, built this. And I asked, how did they get there? The guy said, well, scholars and archaeologists believe that they have no idea. They told me. We don't know. We don't know how it's done. They didn't cut them there anyway. That's the Temple Mount. That's what it's like today. And in Jesus' day, the temple was there. And Jesus said, I'm going to go and I'm going to be opposed by my foes. Being a Christian and standing up for Christ has never been popular, ever. Jesus said that the broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many are on that. Narrow is the road that leads to life, and few find it. Very few people really are going to make it. Well, don't we live in a Christian nation where most people are believers? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We live in a place where we are overrun by false Christianity and false teachings. It's never popular to truly live the life of a disciple. If you're going to stand up for Christ, you are going to be opposed. You're going to be opposed vehemently if you stand up and say what you really think by certain groups, by the LGBTQ group. If you're full of anger and you do it out of hate, then maybe you should be opposed. But if you just state what you truly believe, you're going to be opposed. You're going to be opposed by pro-life groups who believe abortion is okay. If you're truly living the life of a disciple, if you're really willing to say what you think and what are your convictions, you're going to be opposed. You're going to be opposed by people who say they're Christians and they live just a lukewarm, watered-down, false teaching Christianity. You will be opposed. It takes courage to live the life of a Christian in our day and age. You've got to be willing to stand up and say what we think in love and respect, but with convictions. It was opposed back then. Jesus was opposed by his foes. You know, there are many, many examples of courage. I read this one that amazed me. I'm sorry, I got a few more pictures. The Arabs, the Muslims, the Christians, radical people in Israel. This one I want to share about this woman. There are endless examples of courage buried in the ruins of the Holocaust. But Irina Sendler's story stands out. When the Nazis invaded her native Poland and rounded up all the Jews into a wall-in ghetto, Sendler knew what was going to happen. She was a social worker and got credentials as a nurse so she could sneak food and medicine into the ghetto. What she snuck out was even more phenomenal. It's estimated that Sendler and her group helped get approximately 2,500 children out of the ghetto sedated and placed in the bottom of toolboxes or lying in a burlap sack at the bottom of her truck, and sent them through a network of like-minded comrades to Christian orphanages, where they were given new identities. She kept their real names in a jar buried in her backyard. Sandler was eventually caught by the Nazis, who imprisoned her, tortured her, and broke both her legs. When the war ended, she devoted herself to reuniting children with their families, though it proved nearly impossible to do so. That's her at 98. Wow. She passed away. You know, to make a difference in this world, you got to take a stand. You've got to take risks. It takes courage. If you're going to make a difference as a disciple, you've got to be willing to stand up and call yourself a follower of Jesus and live like he did and be like him. We need to have courage to face our foes. We need to have courage to face our friends. Yes, even our friends. If you look back in chapter 16, our beloved Peter in verse 22 was riding high, floating high. His head must have got really big after, "You're Peter, man, you're awesome." Well, verse 22, it says, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Oh, what a bummer, man. I'm so fired up for Peter. Now he's down in the dumps. You know, I've had people call me some pretty hard things. I've had people who rebuke me and challenge me. I've never had anybody call me Satan yet. I don't know, but Peter is there. Peter hears that Jesus is going to suffer, struggle, be opposed, and it bothers him, and he pulls Jesus aside. Think of Peter's audacity to pull Jesus aside. "Listen, Jesus, I know you're the Son of God. I just said you're the Son of the living God. But I got to lay you out. This is not going to happen. You're not going there." You know, you can see Jesus going, "I cannot believe he's doing this," you know. And Jesus, "Get behind me, Satan." You know, yeah, we're going to have foes. There are people that do not like Christianity. They're out to destroy it. They're out to destroy any church, anything that stands up for what's right. That's part of their platform in life. Do you know what's even more challenging? It's taking a stand in front of your friends, in front of your family, in front of people that know you. It's hard to speak up. It's hard to say, "I'm going to church," you know. "I'm going to this church. No, I'm going to obey the Bible and do this. No, I'm not going to listen to that anymore. No, I'm not going to allow you to control me in this way." To take a stand is challenging. You know, we have a beloved brother here who leads our singing, Tyne Penn. Tyne became a Christian a long, long time ago when he was a young man. Long time ago when he was a young man. But what he did was, you know, in his zeal and his excitement, he went home and he saw his beloved parents there, and he just went up to them and basically opened the Bible and laid out in no unseen terms. He basically said, "You're going to hell, you need to repent, you know. Love you." With no tact, no, you know, like trying to ease it on in there. And of course, Mom and Dad were not happy about that, and got a bad attitude, struggled a bit. But now they're literally behind him, you know, because they knew. They said, what is our young punk kid about? And they said, "What's he showing us in the Bible?" And yeah, he was zealous, he was crazy, but he was willing to confront, right? And man, it wasn't perfect, but they both became Christians, and his sister became a Christian, and God worked in a mighty way. Sometimes the hardest people to stand up to is our family and our friends. I'm not talking about, I'm sure Tyne would have loved to have done it in a better way and eased it in there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we've got to be willing to have the courage to face even our friends, the people closest to us, sometimes the most challenging. Finally, courage to face the future. I got to close out with this because it's based on what Jesus says. He says, "I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be faced by all these foes, the elders, the Pharisees, the leaders." Peter then stands up and rebukes him, but he also says, "And I'm going to suffer many things, many things. I'm going to be killed, but I will be raised from the dead." You know, we've got to be willing to face the future. Jesus knew. He knew that a horrible, horrible death. He knew the scriptures, the Old Testament scriptures. He knew the prophecies. He knew that a horrible, horrible death lay before him. Yet he resolutely, with courage, set out and was willing to face his future. He made a decision, resolutely set out to this radical city where he knew what the future held for him. You know, the Bible says in Luke 19 and verse 41 and 42 that when Jesus arrived on the Mount of Olives and he looked out over the city, it says he wept. He just broke down and wept. And in Matthew 23, it kind of refers what he says. As he wept, he just said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you, how I've longed to gather you together as a hen gathers her chicks, but you were not willing. As Jesus stood there and looked over the city, you know, he loved Jerusalem so much. He loved the people. It was special to him. It had been special to God before Abraham even came there, before David even established it as the capital, as Jerusalem, the city of David. Before that, if you go way back to Genesis 14, there was a king and a priest named Melchizedek, and he lived in Jerusalem. He wasn't related to the Israelites. He wasn't a Jew. We don't know who he was or why. He just came out there, and he came out and brought bread and wine. You know, pretty significant, like First Communion there. He brings it to Abraham, and Abraham gives him a tenth of everything. And Melchizedek blesses him. He lived in Jerusalem. He was the priest of God back then. This was a special place. And we knew that when we were there. We felt that. And you know, Jesus looked at Jerusalem and just longed to love them and pull them in and embrace them and have grace on them. But they weren't willing. They were stubborn and rebellious. But he had the courage to face his own death. You know, as disciples, we're not done yet, right? Amen. We're still breathing. We're still here. And a few of us are getting a little older and further along in life. And you know, maybe harder years lie ahead. We don't know. Maybe more challenging things lie ahead. Who's to say? But as we get older and older in life, we know we're getting closer to the end, right? You know, Bob Dole once said, growing old takes courage. I'm starting to realize that, you know, I'm not that old, but realize, well, you know, you got to be ready. You can't face it and be cowardly in the same way as being a disciple. You've got to be ready to face the future. You know, Jesus was willing to go there, was willing to face the future. How about us? Are we ready? Are we ready with courage to face what lies ahead in our life? You know, there's a beloved brother who's been a part of this church for a long time, Jeff Murray. Jeff, I think we all know we've been praying for Jeff, still are. We prayed for him in Israel. Jeff's been battling a very rare type of aggressive cancer. And it's challenging. And you know, every once in a while, not enough, we'll hang out and have lunch or something. We were driving to the men's retreat, and Jeff basically is like, you know, Lowell, one thing that maybe is a positive thing about being ill and not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but he goes, but you know, I don't have to worry about getting old. What do I say to that? Yeah, that's no. Hey, what? You know, Julian's just shaking. Don't say that. And also, we sat down for lunch once, and Jeff was just sharing about what it's like and the cancer and the type and the treatment, and basically was very honest. He said, Lowell, I've looked everywhere on the internet. This treatment has never been successful, right? And so Jeff said, you know, he goes, but he looked at me and he said, if it's my time, I'm ready to go.
Amen.
I'm ready to go.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
You know, that's the kind of courage we need, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's the kind of courage we need to face the future. We're all going to get there, right?
Yeah.
We're praying that Jeff's not going to get there anytime soon, but we're going that way. We have to face the future. Jesus is like, I'm going, I'm ready, I know I'll be raised from the dead. We know that too, right?
Right.
We know that too. You know, I was talking to my mom. My mom is 81, and she's battled cancer. She had treatments, chemo and everything, and cancer's completely gone, but For the last 3 years, she's just been in unrelenting pain. Neuropathy, some of you have it. It's so severe, it's just debilitating. And over the last 3 or 4 months, she's gotten to the point where she can't even walk. She's going to the hospital. Her mind seems to be going at a rapid rate. Some days I talk to her, she doesn't even know what she's saying. But I got her on the phone, yesterday, she's in a nursing rehabilitation home right now, and she was so mad and upset at my stepfather that I think it stirred her a little bit. She was really in her right mind. I'm like, oh, maybe that would help. And so we're talking, and my mom's like, Lola, my mom's been a disciple for over 30 years. She's been faithful. She's brought a lot of people to Christ. She shares with everybody. She's an extremely loving person. She just loves people, and she loves God. But as she's getting older and suffering, she told me, she said, why am I going through this? Why is God punishing me, Lowell? Is there more I have to go through before I'm completely forgiven? I'm like, Mom, no, not at all. I'm like, Mom, God has got you in His hands. He's taking care of you. I kept telling her this, and just trying to build her faith up, and she was getting stronger, and she's like, I know, God is here. I'm like, God is with you. And then she's like, listen, before I go, though, I want to make sure that my husband becomes a Christian. That's what I want more than anything else. And I'm like, well, here she is in unrelenting pain, sick, and she has courage. She has courage. And yes, I'm having to encourage her some, and the minister up there went by to encourage her, but I appreciate her courage to go, I'm looking at what I want God to do right now. Guys, do we have courage to live the Christian life right now? Do we have courage to face what's coming down the road? Or do we just fear and fear and fear what's going to happen? Maybe not just death, but next week, pain, challenges. Are we living in fear, or are we trusting in God? Jesus set an example of having tremendous courage. I pray that we will too, that we'll face every foe that comes our way. Everyone that opposes us will face with courage and with love. Friends who may oppose us, family members who may beset us, whatever it may be, will stand up with courage and with love. And as we face the future, I pray we'll do it with courage and with love. Amen.